Okay, here we are with my Speeduino ECU open on the table. The conversion boards from the Speeduino outputs and inputs to the Mazda MX-5 outputs and inputs. The boards I sold have places for these diodes on them. This was a prototype board, it didn't have that on that yet, so it looks a bit ugly. There's two other wires on there which both have to do with driving the wideband gauge and sensor, or actually the sensor controller I should say, and it's controlled via an external MOSFET. I can control it from the Speeduino, but it doesn't have anything to do with the Speeduino itself. People wire it up to the fuel pump or to ignition as a whole. Just I wanted to have control on when to switch it on and off. So basically Speeduino conversion board and output of the original 1.8 VVT MX5/Miata NB connector. But there's a huge mistake in this board, and you can almost physically see it if you know what you're looking at. The funny thing is, I've been driving this car fully sequential for the last 6 months, over 1,000 miles, and I haven't noticed. But I'm going to try and fix it anyway. The thing that's happening is that on the board, this is the output for injector 1, and it goes to injector 1, this port on the output. And injector 2 goes to injector 2. And guess where injector 3 goes? Injector 3 and injector 4 to injector 4. But this is wrong. And I should have known. It's even in the manual. RTF, Hugo. RTFM, I should say. I messed that up too. So what's happening is when the engine, what the engine wants is 1, 3, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 4, 2. So 1 is correct, but 2 should be connected to 3. 3 should be connected to 4, and 4 should be connected to 2. So on the next iteration of the board, I will have that fixed. You can also just disconnect this connector, pry out the prongs, switch them around, put it back in, that'll work. But what I'm going to do, these traces, if I zoom in a little more, I hope my camera does that. This one, and this one, I can scratch, I can break those. And then I can solder a wire from here to there, and not to there. And the same for the other two. The first one is correct. Injector 1 is injector 1 everywhere. But it should be in firing order. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, and it should be 1, 3, 4, 2 over here. So, cutting and soldering. Too bad. Funny thing is, I've been driving like this for, like I said, over 1,000 miles without any issues while I drive fully sequential. So I don't know if or what it does, or if it brings a huge improvement or not, but I think it's worth doing because it's the way it should be. So I'm halfway through the operation. It will zoom eventually, yeah. I ground away the path and a bit of the red protection to get copper visible, and I tinned that copper. And then I checked two things. One is I checked continuity between here and there shouldn't be continuity, of course, because that's why I ground away those traces. But I also checked another thing. All the big surfaces and the parts between the traces are ground. So I checked these 3 points and these 3 points compared to ground. So I was sure, and there also shouldn't be continuity, because when doing this, there is a chance you hit the ground plane, and when you put solder on, these tiny lines between the trace and the ground plane could be bridged. So keep checking that. Also, when the wiring is done, keep checking that. So here the fix is done. as you can see, trace number 1 is still as it was. Trace number 2 crosses over to 3, 3 crosses over to 4, and 4 crosses over to 2. And yes, it is in the manual. 1 goes to 1, 2 goes to 3, 3 goes to 4, 4 goes to 2. Read the manual, Hugo. So now we should be sequential and the right firing order of the injectors. That might help.